I'd like to take the time now to describe to you the structure of the program. As you're aware, the Master of Teaching and Learning is a 2-year full-time study course, although there is possibility for it to be done in part-time. Over the 2 years, which is the equivalent of 4 semesters, we refer to each semester as a phase. And you'll become very comfortable with this language if you're enrolled in the program. Phase 1, Phase 2, Phase 3, Phase 4. So obviously Phase 1 and 2 are in your first year, and Phase 3 and 4 are in your second year. Every phase has a particular focus, and the subjects and the field-based experiences that you have in school in the 1 day a week or during the practicum all integrate to focus on that particular theme. Then this developmentally advances to Phase 2, to Phase 3, and finally to Phase 4. In very simple language, Phase 1 is about the individual. Phase 2 is about the classroom. Phase 3 is about the classroom as a representation of the community. And Phase 4 is really a culminating experience where all those aspects of the individual, the classroom, and the community become integrated in what we call a final capstone phase. I'll take a little bit of time just to explain the focus of each phase and what you can expect to see as an outcome overall that would evaluate whether that phase developmentally has been completed for you. First phase is an attention to learners and learning. We want you to develop the habit of mind of inquiring and understanding learning and the learner and how that can be influenced by your teaching, which then becomes the focus of Phase 2. But the habit of mind in Phase 1 is you collecting, communicating, and observing to understand the learner. Not just the learner in the classroom, but also understanding yourself. The subjects that you will take within that phase will focus on understanding learning and understanding the learner, including the student and you. We want it to be kind of an unpacking experience where you look at your own experiences and then use those as foundations for understanding what students in schools themselves are experiencing. And thus the subjects that are in that phase are there for a purpose, especially the focus on Indigenous education. So the subject teaching of Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander students is there to help you to gain an understanding of Indigenous learners, but more importantly, to help you to understand yourself in working with Indigenous learners. As well, we include the subject called the arts. So many pre-service teachers in primary are very uncomfortable with teaching the arts. And so we put it in Phase 1 primarily for that purpose of you understanding yourself as a result of your own arts experience. As well, there's 2 subjects that are integrated into one called literacy and numeracy. Look at literacy and numeracy fundamentals. And in that, what you're doing is you're going to be appreciating your own anxieties, possibly, that are associated with those particular subjects, recognizing why students in primary schools getting those foundations are really important. Those subjects are all integrated under one big subject, which we call learners and learning. And so overall, the phase focuses on that particular domain. In Phase 2, the movement is to an understanding of knowing what I know about learners, then how do I teach for those learners? So what we do now is in Phase 2, the focus becomes a focus not so much on the individual, but now as the individual as part of a classroom. How do I diversify my teaching practice? What pedagogical practices do I use that are best for my students? And how must I use adaptive and responsive practices to make sure that my teaching is responsive to those students, especially in the area of mathematics and English and technologies. In Phase 3, we move on. We take a look and extend this to look at other curriculum areas such as humanities and social sciences, science and sustainability, and health and phys ed, and we move towards understanding these subjects more within the context of the community. So how can my planning, how can my teaching respond to students as representatives of the community that they're in? In the first phase, we focused on the individual. In the second phase, we looked at the classroom, not only looking at the pedagogies of classrooms, but looking primarily at behavior management as well. What are the practices that I can use to be responsive to my students and ensure that I can create a positive learning environment? Each one of the practica that you have in phases 1, 2, and 3, which focuses on the individual and the community, are all making sure that the primary assessments of your teaching are in regard to the focus of the phase. So overall, what we're providing for you is a developmental sequence across 4 phases that increases in complexity and assures that you come to the point where you're a day 1 ready teacher, ready to meet the diverse demands of classrooms that we experience today.